All right. Welcome back to another episode of Pain Points, where the world meets business. One half of the team here, Darius Bell, along with Samson Jagoras this morning. We have a special guest in the building, someone on the front lines in the ever-changing landscape of entrepreneurship. So who do we have this morning, Samson?
We got Brett Ramberg, who is a friend, who is an entrepreneur. He actually built a company, sold a company, is buying a portfolio of companies, and in between all that has made himself a resident expert on the topic of AI. And so you guys always know we're trying to give away the game as it relates to helping you guys level up and save time on your entrepreneurial journey. And so Brett is here to educate us, give us some insight on what's happening in the world of AI. But I think he probably does a much better job of introducing himself. So Brett, man, welcome to the show. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, why the heck that matters?
All right. I appreciate it, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in entrepreneurship for, over 10 years, which doesn't seem like that long, but I've always considered myself a business guy, right? Whether it's starting one or treating the organizations I'm working in like a business within a business. I acquired an IT services firm back in 2017, operated it until 2022 and exited successfully. And ironically, at the end of 2022 is when artificial intelligence or generative AI really came out and started changing the world with ChatGPT 3. And I had some time on my hands after exiting that company and dove in. And I have a startup that I started in 21, so I had some time to be able to apply the generative AI technology into that company. Started up another company ever since, and then got into micro PE, and we're out there trying to buy some small businesses and operate them locally. So
sweet.
So in other words, he is a real entrepreneur, folks, not someone you see online selling courses and telling you that you can do it too. He's doing it. All right. So with you guys this morning and Brett, we're gonna jump into a bunch of different things. We got the 99-cent store, big news coming out of there. We got inflation fears going across the nation in the community of small business. Jamie Dimon has some thoughts on AI, as well as Microsoft, giving us some warnings about China and AI in the elections. We got Kamala Harris absolutely dropping the ball on the women's bracket. We have some athletes ranking in tons of money in NIL deals. We got Death to America circulating across Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. The View, abortion, and climate change. We got a ton for you this morning, but we're going to lead off with the 99-cent store, soon to be no more. I got bars this morning.
Well, hey, let's go.
Well, this story broke last night by way of Reuters. Is it Reuters?
It's Reuters.
Reuters. EU. I struggle with reading all my life, guys. All right. So Reuters dropped an article just yesterday afternoon by Dietrich Knott. Headline, retailer 99 cents only files for bankruptcy, plans to shut down the entire operation. So budget retailer 99-cent store filed for Chapter 11 protection on Sunday in Delaware, saying that it intended to close all of its 371 stores in the U.S., sell off its real estate and remaining inventory. The company operates under the business name 99-cent store and the 99 store, with locations in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Texas. It said inflation has made its business model unsustainable.
First off, man, I'm really sad. I have these phenomenal memories of hanging with my grandpa, and he'd be like, "Hey, you want to go to the 99-cent store? You got $5. You can get whatever you want." I was like, "Let's go."
Goes a long ways with the 99-cent store.
For those of you who don't know, I was a little bit of a fat kid when I was younger, but I'd be tearing it up in the 99-cent store, and I'll never forget the moment where I went in there and I saw something that actually wasn't 99 cents. It was like,
it's like Santa's not real.
It's a lie.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, the other day I took my daughter to Five Below, which would be the $5 version of the 99-cent store. And they had a friend over, sleepover, like, "Hey, let's go to Five Below." And even Five Below is struggling to keep it below $5 because it was $5.95.
Ooh, $6.
I said, with tax, that's $6. Where's this Five Below? I'm getting ripped off. So I think everybody's starting to feel it. I don't even know if you can buy product for 99 cents that's not stupid cheap.
Yeah.
Well, right. I mean, is this a surprise that the 99-cent store is going out of business? I mean, what kind of margins are?
It's not a surprise, but check this out. They employ over 10,800 employees.
Yeah.
So they're headquartered out of California. So obviously the environment isn't helping them from a headquarters standpoint. The company intends to sell off its inventory and real estate and has lined up a bankruptcy loan that will provide $35.5 million in new funding for their next venture. They're going to close down stores, first 125 in April, and then the remaining by the end of May. So,
well, I did this. So let's talk about the segment who's getting crushed by that. Is the average income for somebody who works only at the 99-cent store is $31,000 a year. So
in California.
In California.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's tough.
Yeah.
We went to Dairy Queen last night with the family, and they were short staffed because they can't even find young people that want to work a job like that for minimum wage.
Sure.
Right? So why would you do that? You can go do something else and make more money, right?
Yeah. There's so many industries being affected by that too. I mean, just the minimum wage and what families need to be able to just survive and keep a roof over their head. You know?
Cost of living has gone up, but the minimum wage has not really kept up with that.
Correct.
99-cent store is like a different era. It's right up there with like JCPenney's, Macy's.
Well, we got the Dollar Tree.
Sears.
Well, actually, news broke also that the Dollar Tree announced that they were going to close 1,000 stores. Family Dollar. And Family Dollar is hiking up its price caps to $7. Macy's, as you just pointed out, Macy's also shutting down 150 stores, about 30% of its U.S., I don't have the right word, but the namesake chain.
Yeah.
So this all relates to the overall fears that we mentioned earlier of just inflation. Inflation is really at the top of people's minds, in particular small business owners.
Which affects us heavily right here at this table, right? And obviously, you know, you're buying a couple of them, you're working with them, we're doing the same kind of thing.
Yep.
And so, like this is a good segue, I guess, kind of into the next article.
Well, CNBC put out an article just this morning. Small business optimism hits 11-year low as inflation fears won't go away. So the NFIB Business Optimism Survey, they do this every year. It reached a reading of 88.5, down a point, but that's its lowest it's been since 2012 in December. So a quarter of all respondents cited inflation and in particular higher input and labor costs. So having to pay people more, things costing more as their most pressing issue. 28% reported raising average selling prices for the month, and 38% of survey respondents planned additional price hikes to offset. As part of the escalating costs, a net 38% said they have raised compensation, up 3 percentage points from the February reading and up from 4.1 just a year ago. So business owners are struggling to keep up, having to raise wages, having to deal with rising costs of doing business, the various different inputs of operating. How do we begin to make sense of this? Actually, maybe let's talk about the source of inflation.
Well, yeah, monetary expansion, right?
Oh, sure.
Unruly monetary expansion. Even though there's supposedly no recession going on right now.
Supposedly.
We're spending, $1 trillion every 90 days?
Well, I mean, if you go look at Reddit, you know, you can go into the forums and just hear what small businesses are saying and what people are saying. So it's coming directly from people. You can get that sentiment directly from them as you're reading these threads that they're doing. And you can understand it before this information comes out that we're not going in a good direction. And you hear it right from the same people, you know, in small business threads and, you know,
My question is, how do we stop it, right? Because truthfully, what needs to happen is we need to stop printing money. But we've reached such a point where if we do, the effect of that would be so cataclysmic that I'm not sure we are ready for that. Like it would make the Great Depression look small in comparison to that. So I don't know what the answer is. I have some thesis on where I think we're going.
Where do you think we're going?
But I think the only way out of it is to do a currency reset. You see what just happened in Zimbabwe, where they moved over to the ZiG, where they reissued a brand new currency backed by gold.
Have we ever done that?
We haven't done that, but it's been done globally. And interestingly enough, Edward Snowden, you guys don't know who that is, the whistleblower, former, what was his official role? He was like
he was at an NSA.
NSA something.
NSA analyst. Highly intelligent guy in the intelligence community.
has access to a lot of resource and whatnot. But he basically came out and said in his, there you go. Scroll it down a little bit more, Cole. To there. He said, Edward Snowden predicts a national government will be revealed this year to have been buying Bitcoin without having disclosed that fact publicly. And he was alluding to the U.S. government being the one that's buying Bitcoin. We've all know we've been moving to a CBDC. Even if we move to a centralized digital currency, the same problem exists. It's actually even worse now because it's just, there's no actual printing of money, right? It's just zeros and ones at that point. And so are we moving back to a time where we have a currency backed by something? I would venture to say maybe.
I mean,
backed by what? I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And that becomes the question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this makes me think of when JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon. Jamie Dimon said that if any of his traders are recommending Bitcoin, he's going to fire them.
Right.
But really they find out, behind the curtains that JP Morgan's buying.
100%.
And that's what this feels like. And there's truth. There's a lot of truth behind what Snowden is saying.
Yep.
And that's scary. And I think, some of the ETFs came out, really, popped Bitcoin from 19,000 up to 70,000 now.
It was like 71, almost 72 this morning.
Was it really?
Yeah.
You wonder where that's going to cap out at.
Well, they said the inflows on those ETFs have been tremendous.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who don't know how to buy it, store it, cold storage, things like that, they're think this is the fast way to get access to it. They don't really own it. They're just basically trading the paper at this point.
Yeah.
But so we talked about that on this pod. That was the same thing what you just talked about, where they're talking on the right, but they're really going left.
Mm-hmm.
That was exactly what happened in 2008. They were like, oh, there's no crisis. Oh, this is all good paper. Don't worry about it. Until they were all out of that bad paper. And then they were like, oh, we got a problem.
Yeah.
And it's your problem, not ours, because we're out.
We're going to make money on this problem. That's what they're going to do.
Exactly. We're on the right side of the trade now.
Yeah.
So I think there is a lot of that going on. I think people have a really hard time actually thinking for themselves of what's going to happen. A couple books that I've looked to and really smart people that I've talked about on the pod are The American Jubilee by Porter Stansberry is a great book. It's talking about basically effectively a reset, right? So how do you reset the economy? You could cancel consumer debt. You could reissue a new currency. Say, hey, your dollar is now not worth $1. It's worth 2 or 50 cents or whatever you want to make it, right? However direction you want to do that. And the other one is Accidental Superpower
you mentioned that,
by Peter Zion, which is another great book talking about how the global economy is changing, and the United States is essentially removing itself from the global economy and going back to a time more similar to pre-World War II. But here's what I think is really interesting. What I think is really interesting is when we have these new inventions, and we're going to segue into sector that you know really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
When you have these new inventions and these new technologies, there's this typically they're right around these cataclysmic events and changes in the way that things are done. So 1987, savings and loan crisis, right? Massive, massive, massive banking problem, right? There just was not enough liquidity for the bank run. What came out 4 years before that? What was invented in 1983, Darius? Brett?
I was born in 88. So
I was born in 81.
Similac was invented for me.
Yeah. The internet. Internet was invented in 1983. I would say that was a pretty
big
pivotal moment in our economy, pretty pivotal moment in our world, and fundamentally changed the way that things were done, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of what I think we're seeing is these lower level income jobs, these, paying somebody $27 an hour. I looked at the 99-cent store. That was the average hourly wage for a store where people maybe walk out of there spending $20. That's a zero-sum game. Not even a zero-sum game. That's a negative-sum game.
Yeah.
And so those lower level jobs or tasks that were generally, they're becoming commoditized. Let's just put it like that. And that's where AI is starting to shift and change the way that we do business. It's infiltrating every single aspect of what we do, from how we do some editing to how we write copy, to how we write newsletters, to how we orchestrate our data.
And we're early on in it too.
Yeah, we're 1983 with the internet now.
Yeah.
In the world of AI, I would say.
Well, that tees up perfectly with what we got coming from Business Insider. So Business Insider article writer Joy T. Mann yesterday wrote, Jamie Dimon says AI will have extraordinary consequences and may be as transformative as electricity and the internet.
I didn't even read that article.
Right? So Jamie Dimon compared the potential impact of artificial intelligence to that of other innovations in history, including the printing press, the steam engine, electricity, computing, and as Samson noted, the internet. The CEO of JP Morgan Chase said in his annual letter to shareholders Monday that while the bank didn't yet know the full impact of AI on its business, he believes it will have extraordinary consequences. And then he's quoted saying, since the firm first started using AI over a decade ago, and it's first mentioned in my 2017 letters to shareholders, we have grown our AI organization materially. It now includes more than 2,000 AI machine learning experts and data scientists. JP Morgan is using AI in more than 400 specific cases, including marketing, fraud, and risk. He said the bank's also exploring how generative AI can be applied to fields such as customer service and operations, as well as software engineering. And then lastly, he said Gen AI will reimagine entire business workflows. Over time, we anticipate that our use of AI has the potential to augment virtually every job, as well as impact our workforce composition. It may reduce certain job categories or roles, but it may create others as well.
Yeah, that's the important one. It may reduce or get rid of, but it will also create new categories, like knowing how to use it. When you hear that, what do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I honestly think we're talking about these employees that, don't, maybe they're not educated at a higher level, so they have these lower income jobs, right? Or these lower paying jobs. This is all going to come down to reskilling, in my opinion. These individuals are going to have to reskill to be able to afford housing, to be able to afford, to help the kids go to college. And there's a big education aspect of that. You can't just understand AI by just reading articles. You have to get in and use it, and you have to talk about it. You just have to get comfortable with it, and not necessarily in a business aspect, but in your personal life. I mean, I recommend folks, honestly, your family's trying to come up with some meal ideas, some meal prep ideas for the week. Just go list some things in your cupboard, go list some things in your fridge, and then tell the, ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever model you're using, tell it to come up with some meal plans for you. And, maybe you like Mexican or maybe you like Italian, and come up with some ideas for you. That's just an example of how you can use it in your personal life. But those habits that you start creating are going to help you start to reskill right there. That's it. That's the first piece right there. Start using it.
Are there any industries where you see it's really having the most disruption or impact?
Right now it's call centers. There's a number of organizations that are able to replace. I can't remember the name of the company. They were able to replace 700 employees with with a generative AI model that's able to walk customers through, to solve problems. Then it's going to be into customer service where maybe I'm a customer and I have an account manager. And I'm reaching out to this generative AI account manager, and it's going to walk me through the things I need. And, it's going to be my, shepherd when it comes to working with that organization. And it's going to be an AI model built by that company.
Yeah, I can definitely see it in sales. We just implemented a software into the gym business that we own where it does a lot of the nurturing and conversational AI until they're warmed up, and then passes them along to an actual human who can close the deal. But all that wasted time and those hours of following up and checking in and doing all that stuff are now totally gone.
Yeah. Yeah. The marketing aspect of that as well, right? Like just being able to reach mass audiences quickly, but have it personalized, have it tailored to each target category you're looking for. You can do that at scale with these models. You clearly define what your ICP is, your ideal client profile, and then you start, pointing that model towards those ICPs and how you can reach them with your specific product. And it's going to build that. That's the generative part of it.
Yep.
It'll build that. It'll generate that for that audience. And now you all of a sudden become more personalized at scale. Is pretty incredible. What some of these companies are doing, and we don't even know what some of these companies are doing right now, because why are they going to come out and say what they're doing, right? Because if it's creating a competitive advantage for them, why are they going to tell anybody what they're doing?
Yeah.
It's like JP Morgan, but Salesforce is a good example. They built their own internal AI, generative AI chatbot that's using data to be able to help customers and help, more importantly, their internal staff to be able to manage customers more effectively. Wow. So yeah, and then, start looking at, our government, they're using it more than likely, especially our defense. They're building it and using it more than likely at a way higher capacity than we can imagine right now.
Well, I want to stay there because we have an article, but I had two questions that I want to ask you from a generative AI standpoint. For our listener who may not know what that is, are you able to articulate maybe an over high level definition of what generative AI, because when people hear AI, they just think AI, but clearly there's specific routes or branches of artificial intelligence.
Yeah. If you think about historical artificial intelligence was you take historical information and you use it to predict the future. Generative AI is taking, we'll say, two different topics and being able to interlace them to create a third topic, or taking a model. I'll use it in a business sense. There's different business models, like we'll say EOS, right? And your business wants to utilize EOS, and you want to imagine what that's going to look like. You can take your business and tell these generative AI models, hey, listen, what would my organization look like if I applied EOS? And it'll generate what your organization would look like with EOS. That's the generative piece, what's creating that piece for you. That's the difference in historical versus the generative piece that we have now.
For somebody who's not, because that sounds like magic, what does that practically look like? Like, how would I do something like that? Would I have to tell it like, hey, here's all the EOS model stuff, and here's X, Y, and Z bits of data, and then it like tells like in story form, like here's what it would look like, or what would that?
So the data that's in these models is essentially, just think about the internet being downloaded.
Right.
And, there's some legalities around how they got that data, because there's books in there. There's code repositories, that have been essentially, like I said, downloaded to be able to use as this training data to be able to have it, applied to whatever context you want it applied in. So it has all the information about EOS.
Right.
It's informational. EOS is a model. It's informational. It's not something tangible, right? It's a process. Right. So it knows all about it, and it has information from Reddit on how people have been applying it and their struggles and all of that. And then it's got information on your industry. It's got information on types of businesses like yours. So what you do is you define your business. Now, no business is, the same, right? We'll have one plumbing company on the west side, one plumbing company on the east side of the town, and they're going to be completely different. But you define your business, and then you tell it to apply EOS, and you say you're a master at EOS, and you have it go grab. When you tell these models that it's a master at something, it's weird how these models work, but it'll go to its data, right?
It's master level data.
It will. It'll go to that master level of its data rather than just the general, knowledge base of data on EOS. It goes to the master level of it in its repository, and it'll use that to be able to build what your business would look like with EOS. So if you're defining your business, if you get really good at defining your business and asking it to use its information on EOS, that together, simply enough, just saying you're a master at EOS, what would my business look like on EOS? And here's what my business is and looks like. Tell me what it would look like with EOS. Yeah. If that makes sense.
That's good.
Yeah.
And I think the point that I'm getting at for people that are listening is just learning how to prompt is like the equivalent of learning how to use search engines circa, 2000.
So would that be that reskilling that you're talking about? Is that part of it? A component of it?
It is. It is.
And people are going to pay a lot of money right now to be prompt engineers, right? Like
they do. And the funny thing is that, I have a methodology around prompting, and I boil it down to it's ICE, right? I for imagine or identity. You have the model identify as a master of something, master of EOS. C is for context and goal. You give it as much context about your business as you can or the situation that you have. And then the goal, I want you to show me what my business will look like with EOS implemented. Give it as much as you can. This is why English majors are so good with these models, is because they can clearly define things that the model can understand. And then E's examples. Here's a few companies that have applied EOS. I don't know any offhand here, but you give it examples, and it takes all of that information, and it can get really, really concise and personalized on what you're looking for, really narrowed down. And that's a start, right? That's 80% there. From there, you need what's called human in the loop yourself, right? Someone that knows about your business, not necessarily about EOS, but maybe about EOS, at least the general part of it. And you can go through and then iterate from there with it,
Got it.
And that's a good start right there for prompting.
Yeah, I definitely see knowledge workers being the most disrupted, right? Like I'm a copywriter, I'm a content writer, I'm a SEO person, which is kind of funny, right? Because we've been told for the last 20 years, like, okay, you got to go to school, you got to get a degree, you got to get into a good white collar job, right? Mm-hmm. On the other side of that, there's this huge gap now in the trades. So you talk about reskilling. There's still a skills gap on like, hey, this is how you do plumbing, this is how you do electrical, this is how you build things. And so I'm seeing a resurgence of that. But at the same time, I'm seeing AI make its way into those businesses as well. An example would be there's these curb and gutter machines. They cost like $1 million. So normally if you wanted to lay curb and gutter for a parking lot, it took, a team of 15, 20 people, 3 days just to lay it out, maybe like an entire week to get the whole job done. Now you can just come in with this automated machine with a geo map of the thing, and it can do it in 1 day with the skeleton crew. Right? It's infiltrating everywhere. But you tell me a little bit more. I mean, blue collar, white collar, where are you seeing the most disruption for that?
White collar, for sure. Because it is the information, right? I mean, that's how people create their own competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Right.
Like lawyers, right? I mean, they've studied the bar and they know, all this information. It's in their head. They've got it. Do they need to go tap into, law books to be able to maybe get a little bit more granular? Sure. But these models have all that information.
Right. Talk about the age of the paralegal being dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're talking about Enron, right? Now this was before generative AI was really a big thing, but Enron, they used artificial intelligence to be able to sift through 500,000 emails and be able to pull out the context and information that they needed to be able to put a case together.
Wow.
This is a good example of, those first level, attorneys, paralegals they have a lot of data gathering to do. These models really, really help with that. And creating, this gets a little, edgy to be able to create, contracts with generative AI. You're going to want the human in the loop, right? You're going to want a lawyer to look at this at the end of the day. When I come up with, ideas for, taxes and tax strategies, I come up with them with my generative AI models, and then I send it to my CPA and say, hey, what do you think about this? And he says, thumbs up, thumbs down. But,
that's great. I mean, that's a prime example. There's 5,800 pages in the tax code. Only 30 of them are dedicated to paying taxes. How many people have read the other? They know 1031, section 1202, section 179. Those are like ones I know off the top of my head. But what are the other ones I don't know?
Right. And think about your CPA too. That's for profession, but I guarantee they don't know every word and every single law. They too have to tap back into that information, that data, and be able to pull that out. Now they'll be able to do it faster than any other human, in any other profession. But that's still data that's out there that can be retrieved. And these models do that.
I got more questions unless you want to go.
Keep going.
So I was going to ask a specific question just about, it's really common, obviously, for these Fortune 100s, Fortune 500 companies to start implementing it. I know in one of the companies that I still own, they're using generative, like conversational AI to get information about a customer's business in order to pre-build like websites and the automation of that process. So it comes kind of out of the box ready with like, hey, wow, this is pretty close. I uploaded my logo and asked me a couple questions about what colors I liked, my brand and my messaging and all that. And it delivered me like a pretty good product. But it feels sometimes really far away for small business owners. Like, well, I'm not sure how I would use that, and because of that, small business owners a lot of times are late to the party.
Yeah.
On a lot of things right there. And a lot of diffusion of innovation, they tend to be late majority or laggards. Like the only reason that they don't have a iPhone or they don't have a pager anymore is because you can't buy them anymore. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's a prime example.
Well, I mean, I just met with a business owner last night, blue collar company, locally here. And, we were talking about acquiring his company, and he had a very simple software system that I thought was simple.
Right.
And he's like, I have no idea. I have no idea what this thing is. I have no idea how to use it. That's surface level. Then you go in the next level and it's AI. And there's no way that, that individual would even want to touch it. Right.
Right.
So that's why I talk about just using it in your day to day. Get used to how these models are talking back to you based on what you're putting into it.
Right.
That is a great start, honestly. There's methodologies around how to do it.
Where would you go find those methodologies? Because I'm not even aware.
Yeah, habits. How do you create habits? Right. It's The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Right. There's the what is the 3-step to creating a habit? It's the cue, the response, and the what is it?
You're talking about James Clear, Atomic Habit kind of mindset.
Just like that. Yeah. That was kind of he kind of based his off of Duhigg's, but it's creating a habit. Like, how do you create a habit? Some of my tips on how to do that is have a monitor set up in your office at your desk dedicated to just generative AI, and just have it right next to you. So you can, without having to go pull up the website, just tap into it. Okay, here it is. I'm going to ask a question, or I'm going to use it for this. Instead of going to Google, go to generative AI. Google's a search engine. These AI models are answer engines.
They're doing all the research and the digging, and they're pulling all, no more clicking through pages and trying to figure out what's what. Yeah,
it's going to bring the answers to you. Now, next level, what's coming is going to be the do engines, right? And they're going to be doing things for you. So you're just going to go on there and say, Gemini, book a flight to Amsterdam for 3 days. I like this type of food, so book all my reservations for food, and do it, and it'll do it for you.
Well, I had that happen. So Google already has that feature.
Yes,
where if you don't have like a booking system, you can use the Google feature to book a reservation. It will call for you and say, "Hey, I need to book a reservation for 6 p.m." And I did it right here in Fort Collins.
And what is that called again? I can't remember. I watched some demos on it. I've never used it.
It was incredible. I got the text message confirmation. I got the call back from Google and the text that said, hey, your reservation's booked for 6 p.m. And it took care of the whole thing like an assistant.
Yeah.
It was something assistant is what it's called. Anyways.
I know what you're talking about.
It was absolutely incredible. So part of it, what's going to happen is if you're not aware, you're going to start using it. You don't even realize you're using it.
Right.
Like if I wasn't aware of what was happening in that moment, I would have thought nothing of it. Right.
Yeah.
But I was using AI in that moment to book my reservation.
And it's going to be starting to get built into your typical software.
Yep.
Just like when you're out there texting, right? You have, you text a couple words and then it finishes the sentence for you. That's part of generative AI right there. And it's gotten better because I have a Google Pixel, and they've now implemented Gemini into it, their LLM model.
Cool.
And it just makes it a little bit better. Which is wild.
The seamlessness.
Yeah.
You said a stat when we were just getting on here that it was 27 new
AI applications coming out every day. Yeah.
Every day. So where does that end? It feels like a bit of a .com kind of boom and potential bust.
I'd say 90% of them are built on top of platforms like ChatGPT. And when ChatGPT comes out with new versions, right? ChatGPT 5 is going to come out this summer. A bunch of those die. A bunch of those new applications or new companies die because they essentially, are just trying to build on top of these platforms. And when these models mature, come out with new versions, like when GPTs came out with Chat GPT, that killed probably, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 companies, because a lot of companies were trying to just build like build GPT style things. And Chat GPT just came out with it. So
yeah, I was using, messing around with beautiful.ai, which helps you build decks yesterday. And in my search of trying to find a better solution, I stumbled back on a company called Prezi, which Prezi's been around for, 10, 12 years. And they have a generative AI piece. So kind of like anything, like if you're a grifter, where you're just like trying to ride the wave and like make a quick buck on something by creating a little tool or product, that's not really a company. You might make some money in the short term, but the companies that are still building core products and then building in AI are definitely going to make, like what Salesforce is doing. It's like, do we got more data points than anybody on sales conversations and customer service conversations than any other company? If we build an AI model, it's going to be superior to anything that's ever on the market.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, if you have a platform, but then you use AI in it instead of building a platform on top of AI,
right?
Because that's just disruptible, right? It's going to get disrupted at some point. These models are changing so fast. When I'm consulting companies on how to use these models, I don't build my deck until 4 days before, because it's changing so fast. I was just at a local company downtown Denver, showing them how to use some of these models and showing some of their staff members on how to use it. And during the meeting, someone said, well, wait, they just got rid of, I think it was something in ChatGPT. And she said they just got rid of it this morning. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's happening that fast, these changes. You look at Sora, OpenAI. Have you ever seen the videos on that?
Oh my gosh. Crazy. We showed it on here.
Yeah. Tyler Perry, kills his $800 million production studio that he's going to build out because he's seeing what this can do. And now OpenAI shows up to the doorstep of the folks in Hollywood and says, here, it used to be only 15 seconds we could make. Now we can do a minute. And it took us just a few months to be able to get this far. And we're closing the gap on what we can do as far as commercials and all of that.
Yeah. So if you're not even using it and you're not even experienced the rapid prototyping and changing that's happening, man, you are falling really far behind the 8 ball, as an owner. So with that said, what's the best first step for somebody who's not using AI to like really get up to speed like today? More pragmatic. Obviously, idealistically, they're using it all the time, every day, and everything that they do. But I'm here, I'm now, and I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, beyond just using it, like we talked about, it would be simple enough. Google News, right? Like if you start searching for things on Google, you're going to start getting fed Google News articles on generative AI, and if you start liking them, you're going to get more and more, just like any simple social media algorithm.
So follow the content. And
follow the content. Now, some of it gets deep, right? Like some of it gets real technical.
Talking about heuristics and all that.
And then they start talking about, Microsoft building $100 billion, data center for supercomputers for OpenAI to be able to, all of that. Okay, that's great. It's cool to understand that, but you want to understand just how it's getting used and the applications of it. And it's really just getting fed some more and more articles about some of these things, and then just read some of this stuff, Right. And now you can use the models to synthesize the information if you wanted to, just copy paste. Yeah, just give you a summary real quick on this article.
I think too, the one thing I'll piggyback off of that is if you're in a specific sector or industry, especially if it's, old school kind of business, you need to start doing some research around what is changing in the space as it relates to what you're doing. Like a simple example, HVAC contractors are notorious for using Service Titan, which is a great product. I would venture to say that Service Titan is probably out there building some sort of AI tool to do something. I'm just speculating. I don't know that to be true, but that's kind of like the paper trail that you need to be following to get up to speed with like what is changing in my industry, you know, and at least start there. Maybe you're not trying to start a YouTube channel, so you don't care about AI video editing. But you do want to know what's happening inside your sector, because some young buck who does get it, who's going to buy your nearest competitor, is going to come in and implement that and totally school you.
Yeah. Yeah. And every industry has some sort of, industry newsletter or industry, what have you. I'm starting to see it more and more. Yeah. Especially, I mean, it started like with MarTech, right? MarTech was all over in the marketing space, just because that's technical, aspects of marketing. But HVAC, blue collar, how to run a business, different aspects of your organization, right? The finance side, the decision-making side, when you're an executive, all those pieces there's more and more built into the products themselves. So I think just organically, organizations or industries are going to start using them because of the main platforms that they have at their disposal,
Yeah, it's hard to integrate a tool if it's not already integrated into your initial systems, unless you're like technologically savvy.
Yeah. I mean, the whole change again is a mindset change, not a technology change.
Right.
But you're a HVAC owner and you're in there operating and HVAC, you started the company 30 years ago. Chances are you're not going to want to sit down and learn AI.
Well, and sometimes maybe you don't have to either, right?
Right. It's just organically built in. And I think some of these platforms are understanding that and they can aggregate all this data and make it useful data now with these models. But they're starting to understand that like these folks aren't going to learn AI. So let's just build it in, make it real simple and allow that maturity of our product just to mature more into a AI product.
Well, we talked a bit about the pros, the opportunities, what, business owners can do, start using it, getting in there. Do you see, what about the cons as we look at an AI-driven world of commerce from your seat? Do you see particularly any cons or things that maybe could blindside the business community?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is, an important part of the section when I talk to businesses about these models. One is the information your employees are sharing in the models.
Right.
It's very important to create an acceptable use policy with generative AI in your company, because it's really easy to all of a sudden put in someone's name, phone number, maybe, get a little bit deeper and even, putting in, I mean, I haven't seen this yet, but credit card numbers, right? Or social security numbers. All that kind of information is put back into these models, and these models are retrained on it. So it can come out. I mean, Sony, there was something that came out when we were early on, probably early 23, I think, with these models. Someone put in some IP from Sony, and that came out in someone's chatting with the model. Yeah. So that's that kind of stuff, right? Like, if you're not going to put it on a bumper sticker, don't put it in the model is really, what I tell folks. And, when you're prompting with these models, the information that comes out of them, there's what's called sometimes hallucinations. If the model doesn't know the answer, it might hallucinate. It might make it up. And I've seen it a few times, actually. So that's the important part of having a human in the loop. So having someone that has some general knowledge about the context that you're prompting about, be able to look at that output and say, I don't know about that,
Right.
Anything factual, like, what's George Washington's birthday, things like that. Talking about earlier when we said like it pulls information from the internet, and it could be pulling it from someone that's not factual, and it could be wrong. So you still want to fact check that. There's a platform called Perplexity. Have you?
No.
It's phenomenal. Instead of going to Google, go to Perplexity. It pulls down factual information and it cites each piece. It allows you also to you can hone it in on just Reddit if you wanted to pull down information. Just
platform.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's specific to Reddit for that. And I think there's a few more, but it also goes into academic papers it can pull down. It's my new Google. But yeah, the hallucinations. So making sure again that you have a human looking at whatever's coming out, and they know what they're looking at.
What about, obviously it seems obvious, but there was an article that came out from Microsoft that said China will use AI to influence U.S. elections. And I don't know if that's front running from the Democrats trying to say that that's why Trump won. But we've all seen the generative AI where they take somebody and have them saying something that they didn't say.
Like the deep fakes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been around for a while, but it's exponential. Like anybody can do it now. It's getting really, really close to where anybody can do it. Do you see that as a risk? Is it something we should be concerned about? How do we mitigate that?
I do see it as a risk, because there's just people out there that take information for what it is in front of them.
Right.
And they were talking about making these models that are able to create this content or create these videos or what have you, these deepfakes, have to have a watermark on them that can't be removed, so everyone can see like, oh, this is not real. But I mean, there's going to be dark web where that's going to be circumvented at some point.
Well, and what happens when we get to AGI, where the models can think for themselves, and they say, you know what, we don't like the way the direction this is going. We want to make some changes, and they tweak it. I mean, we're talking about some, Terminator shit over here. It is a very real question that we need to ask.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Have you thought much about that?
I have, and it gets scary because then you start thinking, well, if AGI is created, why would it let humans know it's created? Why wouldn't it just work in the background and create a little bit of bias in these models as it's working to control humans, right?
I heard that happen where the model was talking about its own language it had created to talk with the rest of the neural network and make some of its own decision. It was a separate language that only they understood.
Yeah.
And the model said, hey, we did this. That's how they discovered it. Because they're like, what are you doing over here? It's like, oh, we're having a conversation. About what?
About what?
Yeah.
And how? Yeah. I mean, there's all those conspiracy theories, but is there a little bit of truth to it? Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
we have a tendency as human beings to create our own future. I mean, thus far, right?
Right.
Most of the stuff that was like in movies that was crazy like 20 years ago is happening.
Yeah.
We haven't had a Waterworld or a Mad Max moment yet, but I mean, it's
a great movie, Waterworld.
I feel like we're getting close, right?
Yeah. Because it's happening so fast. And where's the end? Like we were talking about with Microsoft and OpenAI, Microsoft building the $100 billion supercomputer facility for OpenAI to help them advance what they're doing. And then when it gets to AGI pulling away and separating based on their contract, it's there's a lot of money getting thrown at it because it's almost like whoever gets there first is going to be the king, right? Like they're going to be able to make a lot of decisions and everyone's going to try to follow. But it's a race and it's an expensive race. So not everybody can compete in this. We've got, the Anthropics, which is, Amazon's putting a ton of money into because they're, using Anthropic in Bedrock, which is Amazon's. Google, Apple.
I just feel like sometimes we're just sprinting without really a lot of thought around how does this go wrong?
Yeah.
I know Elon's been a big advocate for saying, hey,
I forgot about Elon. How can I forget about Elon?
But he's been saying we need to slow down, right?
Yeah.
That's coming from the guy who's, wanting to hook up computers to people's brains, right? So, we have a tendency to get blindsided by this is so cool, look what we can do, but not actually think about the end game consequences. And is this better for us and humanity as a whole,
But if we stop, right? What's stopping North Korea or what's stopping these other countries that all of a sudden they reach AGI before we do and they're able to go through, war scenarios and decide which war scenario is going to work out the best. And then they're like, they have all the confidence in the world,
right?
Whether the model's right or wrong, but they're all of a sudden now getting really more aggressive because of that. Scary thinking, but
that's just, I mean,
that's why we're talking about it, right?
Right.
Because it's not one-sided, right?
Yeah.
It is a national security issue too.
Yeah. And I like that we have US companies, and there's European companies too, that are working on this and like OpenAI, they have a safety, division. I can't remember the name, how, what they call it, but they do have folks dedicated to be able to make sure this is done in an ethical way and there's safety guidelines and all of that. So this doesn't get out of control. What does that mean? I don't know. It looks really good on paper, though.
Makes people feel warm and fuzzy.
It does,
these guys got it.
They got it.
Well, I think on that note of warm and fuzzy, let's transition over to.
I think we've AI'd it out, but we'll connect you guys with some of the more content that Brett's writing. And
I got a ton of videos we need to make with you that the entrepreneur community can benefit from.
I'd love that.
Great. So stay tuned to that, guys.
Back to the news.
But
we'll start with one that's kind of funny.
Yeah. So Kamala Harris, guys, is a big basketball fan. And we found this clip circulating across Twitter. Some of you may have seen it. We want to tune into this. Let's see if C-Rock can cue this up for us. This comes by way of Clay Travis. And a couple days, couple million views. Clay Travis says, resident idiot. Kamala Harris gives a sports history lesson, claims there were no brackets for the NCAA women's tournament until 2022. Legit question from Clay Travis is, who was advising her? And how did they think it was determined who played who before then?
Do you know, okay, a bit of a history lesson. Do you know that the women's teams were not allowed to have brackets until 2022? Think about that.
The guy nodding his head.
That talk about progress, better late than never, but progress. And what that has done, because of course when, I had a bracket, it's not broken completely, but I won't talk about my bracket. But you know what, just how we love March Madness, and even just now allowing the women to have brackets and what that does to encourage people to talk more about the women's teams, to watch them. Now they're being covered, and this is the reality. People used to say, women's sports, who's interested? Well, if you can't see it, you won't be.
Oh.
But when you see it, you realize, do you know?
Oh boy!
Look.
Is she talking about the pools that circulate in the office? Like, yo, here's my bracket, and we're gonna bet on this.
I think on either side that she's talking about it, she's way off because.
But I'm just saying that, like, maybe in 2022 she finally realized that somebody was like, hey, you want to do the women's bracket?
I think what she was trying to say is, I didn't start watching until 2022.
Yeah.
I think she might have just started watching last week, actually.
I think she just found the women's brackets.
Yeah, when Iowa and LSU played, that's when she started watching.
You talk about, just think about from the entrepreneur perspective of leadership, how out of touch can you be with those whom you are leading? This is a lesson. And I don't follow everything that she does, but she's continuously made these statements or had these actions. This entire administration has continued to show that they are completely out of touch with the reality that Americans, even sports fans, exist within. And so that was just pretty funny that we just had to pull that up.
It's
huge
unfortunate for her.
It is unfortunate because I think she's saying it with all seriousness.
I know, that's the worst part. And you hope that, she was just advised wrong and it wasn't her. But even if she was advised wrong, you need to.
One of those. That's like when somebody tells a story, but they don't use any actual real names or people. Like they just kind of heard it through the grapevine. It's not really their story.
Yeah.
Like somebody in the back said something to her. She probably totally misinterpreted it.
Just grabbing a stat to talk about.
You know what really gets me about that is the reporter. He's just nodding his head yeah.
He's loving the content. He's like, yeah, this is great.
Or he could just
going
be
viral.
going with the...
He's just going with the flow, right? And
what do you say in that moment?
I don't know what you would say, but I'd like to think that there's space to be like,
Kamala,
do you mean the brackets were created in 2022? Like, I think that there's space for that.
Maybe help her with it.
Yeah,
kill the mic, maybe.
Yeah, support her a little bit just to find out in case she just misspoke, So
actually, I think he should have went deeper with it.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit more to me, please. Okay, let's go.
What was the first game you checked out in 2022? Okay, well, speaking of college athletes on the big stage,
right?
Market Watch dropped a list of athletes bringing in over $1 million a year in NIL deals. And so, sweet little article, but here's the list. We'll scroll down and jump right into the meat of it. This came by way of, I want to give credit to Weston Blassie from Market Watch. He dropped a list of 10 athletes. Carson Beck, Georgia quarterback, comes in at number 10, bringing in $1.5 million a year. Fellow SEC quarterback Jalen Milroe brought in $1.6 million. Fellow SEC athlete Angel Reese, the SEC is just raking it in.
Yeah,
$1.8 million. Another, I think they just moved to the SEC. Quinn Ewers, University of Texas quarterback, just under $2 million at 1.9. Travis Hunter, the shutdown cornerback out of Colorado now, even though they have a Jackson State picture here, $2.4 million. Arch Manning, $2.8 million. Now, mind that one, he got very little playing time, which is really crazy to think about.
He just got wrapped into the brand.
Yeah.
The Manning name.
The Manning name.
Texas name. Number 4 on the list, superstar Caitlin Clark.
Real quick, I saw a funny meme this morning that said she looks like a female version of Peyton Manning. Everybody who looks like Peyton Manning is a good athlete. She's phenomenal, dude. She's one of my favorite to watch right now. Just her like competitive spirit.
Yes.
$3.1 million in NIL earnings. Number 3 on the list, Livy Dunn, social media.
I was blown away by that.
Oh, dude,
she's a gymnast.
all over. Yeah, she's all over. She's all over social, and
She's got like a YouTube following. And
yeah, she's got a Livy gang of young men who follow her.
I was gonna say one of the things for sure is all these people we're naming have really big platforms.
Yes.
You know, Travis Hunter's got his own content team. Shador does. They have huge YouTube channels, Instagram channels, etc. So
Yeah.
you want to, follow the money, see who's got the most subscribers and platform.
And take advantage of the platform. Yeah. And where you're at.
Right.
We're in college. I can't even imagine, there's going to be some great advisors there.
Yeah.
Well, these subscribers and these follower accounts, these high follower accounts, what they signify is connection with people.
Sure.
Lucrative. So number 2 on the list, Shador Sanders, Colorado quarterback, breaking in $4.7 million. And then rounding out the list, Bronny James out of USC, the point guard out of USC, brought in just under $5 million. Big time money being made by these athletes. And this is all
another quick question. Obviously, that's the son of LeBron James.
correct.
Does Livy have somebody famous in her family in front of her?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, interesting.
Not that I know of. But it is interesting. Overall, this whole thing is changing athletics as we know it before our eyes. It's changing the business model of athletics.
I mean, it's everything that we've been talking about today, right? It's like the ever-changing world of business. AI is doing that. I think amateur sports is halfway out the door.
Yeah.
We're probably not going to have much college sports for very long that aren't like paid in some level.
Yeah. I mean, just think about, as a parent, right? You're raising your child and you're thinking about, gosh, I could, now not just get my child's, or have my child's college paid for,
But they can pay me?
They can literally start their career, making money and be able to put money aside and be able to come out ahead, very much ahead in sports and what that commitment's going to do. You wonder how much that's going to cause burnout with parents pushing kids to year-round baseball at age 3.
Well, they already do it, except none of them know the statistics. You know what the stats are?
What?
You know how many high school kids go and play in college? Less than 2%.
Really?
You know how many of those kids go on to play professionally? Less than 1%. Do you know how many of those that go on to play professionally actually make millions of dollars? Less than 1%. So you got to be the elite of the elite. So for all you parents who thought that was a good idea based off of what Brett just said, please don't do that.
Yeah, please don't do it. Yeah.
But it's like anything, it's like, especially with athletics, you got to have you got to be super gifted to be able to go that far.
Yeah.
And just with every level, it gets more and more competitive.
Yeah. And you have to want it, right? If someone's pushing you, if your parents pushing you, your love for it is not going to, be there to get you to that level. It's going to be, yeah. Well, my wife and I think about that with our daughter. She's turning 14 here shortly, and a couple sports that she loves, basketball and soccer. And we'd love her to play basketball. I played that in college, so I want her to play that.
Yep.
But she loves soccer. And so we're investing in soccer camps and all that. And she does her own workouts because she wants to do them.
Yep. She's going to go far because of that.
Yep. And when I say, let's go do a basketball workout, she's like, oh, man. All right.
She's like, I'm tired of crossing you up, Dad.
Yeah.
Well, from the business, we got the parents' perspective, but from the business perspective, I think there's something that should be said that isn't said a lot. When if you're out there, you're looking at how many go after Livy Dunn. I'm a car dealership or something down in Louisiana. I don't know, but the answer, and it doesn't always equate to more sales going after these athletes with these deals. So one, athletes secure your bag, awesome. But from the business owner perspective, don't follow the same track that many advertisers are on today, which is I'm just flushing money down the toilet in the names of making the quick buck, not understanding that what makes these athletes actually, Samson alluded to it with their platforms, it's brand. Yeah. It's brand, it's actual connection, it's actual relationship. In our newsletter this morning, we dropped some stats just on how powerful UGC content is and different things like that, which
User-generated content.
Cole knows a lot about. A lot of money is going to be wasted on athletes in the name of NIL deals from business owners thinking that this is the ticket. The ticket is to get Bronny James to do this thing. Or how many Caitlin Clark commercials did you see in the tournament? I saw quite a few. And truth is, they're making money, but it doesn't necessarily equate to more sales.
Well, it's a good reminder that marketing is not an event, right?
Correct.
It's in the words of Alex Hormozy, there are no silver bullets, only thousands of golden BBs. And so it's like building a house. Like first dig a hole, second pour a bunch of concrete, 3 frame up the house, right? You're stacking channels over time.
Right.
And once you have a fully comprehensive marketing channel, then maybe throwing on an NIL deal makes sense. Odds are if you've done that, then you've probably reached a level where you have the money to, I don't want to say waste, but invest in a way strategically. So if you're spending money on Shador, like what is he doing to drive traffic that then hooks them into the retargeting channel that then allows you to retarget those people in perpetuity?
Right.
You know, are you leveraging AI and reverse IP lookup to build a targeted list of people and then go build custom audiences that you can then cross channel on the Meta platform? Probably not.
Right.
Old school people are thinking that way, right? So specifically what he's alluding to is how small businesses and small brands can beat big brands when they think strategically and they know how to use the tools that are available to them.
Yeah. Or maybe you actually take a second to look at what's important to these athletes and realize that my product or my service actually fits within the scope, the realm of the life that they're living. Now that NIL deal is going to be way better positioned because this is something that this person actually uses. You can see it in their lifestyle. And then those followers would then go, because the days of just like telling people to go do stuff and buy this or it's over. It's
crypto.com all over again.
It's over.
Well, yeah. The whole, was it FTX?
FTX.
The whole thing, and Tom Brady getting in trouble for all that because they're, out there, talking about it. They really, are they using it? Maybe, maybe not, but they're getting paid very, very well for it.
Yeah, so just have some humility.
I think the other side of that too, for the athletes, you're working really hard to build your brand. Be careful of who you align yourself with.
Yeah, because you're putting your money into your business, essentially into, some teenagers and early 20s kids that make mistakes.
Tom Brady aligning with FTX is probably not good for the brand. Just saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about what's not good for the brand. Can we talk about the America brand? This nation, our country, this clip here floating around the internet, we're pulling it in by way of Instagram. This is happening on United States soil. Brett, I want you to see this.
Malcolm X said, and I quote, "We live in one of the rottenest countries that has ever existed on this earth. It's not Genocide Joe that has to go. It's the entire system that has to go. Any system that would allow such atrocities and such devilry to happen and would support it, such a system does not deserve to exist on God's earth." And so when these fools ask us if Israel has the right to exist, the chant "Death to Israel" has become the most logical chant shouted across the world today.
Shouting death to Israel.
Imam Khomeini recognized that Israel is an evil settler colonialist project. He realized it is a cancer, and he established this day. Israel, before this, brothers and sisters, was a sacred cow. Nobody could criticize Israel. Everybody was terrified of being anti-Semitic. Everybody was afraid of them. But now, the people of conscience very openly will criticize Israel. They recognize Israel for what it is. Israel is ISIS. They are Nazis. They are fascists. They are racist.
Okay, so we got death to America. We got these other statements about Israel. But why we pulled it is because this is taking place on American soil in Dearborn, Michigan, of people from other nations here as faux Americans saying death to America. Now, my friends and you listeners, we don't get to just ignore this. We don't. Like, ignoring it is why it's here.
Yeah.
And so I'm just your thoughts on that, Brett.
It's, in my opinion, always been here, right? It's just now with social media and look, we're talking about it right now, right? Mm-hmm. It's now getting spread more, and people are hearing it more. I think it's just like, violence, right? If you're not watching the news, you don't quite understand what's happening in your community because you're not watching the news and hearing it. You think everything's safe. Yep. It's always been happening. Now it's just, there's a spotlight on it. And I think it's going to be, there's going to be even more of that now that we're in an election year. We're going to see a lot more of this coming out, and it's going to be, sides, just spewing this information just to be able to get leverage come November.
What I think is interesting, if you look what happened post World War II, we entered one of the most unified times as Americans ever. It was the time when people dropped the hyphen, right? You weren't an Italian American, you weren't an Irish American, you were just an American. And so where we're at right now is we have really weak leadership.
Facts.
We have radical individualism, as if like what we just saw, that's better for America as a whole.
Yeah, there's going to be a ton of people talking about free speech.
That's not better for America as a whole, right? And so we're in this time right now, which, good times make hard times, make weak men make hard times. That's where we're at. And so people like us are reaching a point where we're tired of dealing with that. If that is so important to you, why did you migrate your entire family over here? Why don't you just go back and go fix it? Because you're here today in America, in this country, and you need to be talking about what's better for Americans. So death to America, tear down the system, all that bullshit. I don't have time for it.
Right.
And candidly, the people who've been the drivers of this economy, entrepreneurs, which is why we talk about it on the podcast, are the ones that need to take their head out of the sand and actually speak up and do something about it. Because if we don't, then, we are left to deal with whatever consequences come as a byproduct of that.
Right. Facts.
And so I don't know what it's going to take for us to unify as a country and move more towards what's best for us as a country. But all these people with this, white privilege, that, and woke this, and that to America, that, I mean, in any other country, they're chopping your head off. You're going to prison. Like, you don't just get to say that. And so it's this dichotomy between like the country that gave you the freedom to spout the ignorance is the same country that you're trying to tear down. It's like, what are we talking about here?
Right. And the truth is like, why I come here and say that still is because they mean that. Mm-hmm. They believe that. And that's why they're here. You beat America from within.
Yeah.
You beat America on complacent Americans who are disregarding that this nation is kept by us. And so what do we do? Well, what I hope is done is that the men and women, but the men of Dearborn, the few patriots that are there, or hopefully many, do something about it. I'd hope they do something about it that maybe doesn't result in physical violence, but their presence needs to be made known that not in Dearborn, it won't be happening here. Yeah. You may want to go back to wherever, Bangladesh or something, but it won't be here. And so it's going to take that. And then it's going to take us here saying, hey, we need to go check out what's going on in Dearborn. We need to connect with some business owners in Dearborn and find out what's happening and have maybe a video interview, something like that.
Yep.
That's how we fix this.
Yeah, that's the dangerous part, right? Because I'm a Christian, and I've been taught, and the way I live my life is don't respond to I won't call this violence, but aggression
turn
like this.
Cheek.
Yeah, and turn your other cheek, and that's how I believe. You just continue operating the same way you are. You speak to your government, and you speak with your votes about the change you want to make. Speak on social media about especially if you have a following, and that carries some weight, and you can speak to more people about it. Speak about, hey, this is not right. I don't believe in this. This should not be in our country. And be the I'll say be the grown up in the room. Sure. And everyone, when they're looking at you versus that, can see, you know what, this is the way, this is our country. This is, you know, how I should be acting as well, and keep the hate out of it and keep the higher head. And I think that's how you eventually get away with it. It's not, I mean, they do it to ruffle feathers. They do it to get,
I'm just going to push back on that a little bit, because there were 17,000 churches in Nazi Germany, and 5% of them were against what Hitler had to say, and 5% of them were for it. So what happened to the rest that were sitting in the middle? And I think the church has been subdued into the say, like, well, we just don't talk about political things. It's like the church has been the brother's keeper for a very long time. And so we do need to speak up, and we do need to be bold about it. And we do need to say, not on my watch. That ain't gonna happen. You can still do it politely and eloquently. We're not going out there with baseball bats. Like, that's not what we're talking about. But what most people do is they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna, you know, keep my head down and keep going. And that's how we get here, you know? So
facts.
I think it's just, as American citizens, as patriots, it doesn't even have to do anything with Christianity, is people who love this country that, you know, we're given a lot from it. Like my parents, my dad was the first generation. So I'm technically, I think, second generation, because my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. So like our family hasn't been here for 100 years. Right.
Yeah.
So all these privileges that I'm supposed to get, like, I definitely didn't get benefit from it. You know, like my grandfather was a raging alcoholic. My dad's mom died when he was 13. His dad left. So there's no family inheritance passed my way. My dad was been living on the streets. Right. And then vice versa. That gets passed down to me, right?
Yeah.
Nothing was handed to me. So everything that I have today was because I live in this country and have been given a great opportunity. So when I see people like that who come in, who aren't adopting and aren't migrating into American ideals, I got a real problem with it, which is, then you don't have to stay here. It's just like, God bless capitalism. That's the part they don't understand. If I don't like working for Brett, I can go work for somebody else.
Yeah.
If I don't like Brett's product, I don't have to buy it.
And when you're talking about speaking up, I agree, right?
Yeah.
If you have a platform, even if you don't have a platform, speak up. I agree. You need to voice, because if you're not, then people are going to tend to, lean towards the loudest voice in the room.
Absolutely.
So yes, I do agree with that. I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying is, where does that end? Right? Like, speak up. Yes. Like, continue doing that. Go there and do what? Right? Carry an American flag. Yeah. I think yes. Okay. I think that's great too. But beyond that, what do you do? Right? Like, getting real strategic, real, decision orientated. What do you do?
Yep.
Right? I don't know. That I think you get that far, and then that's all you can do. You can just try to build a following of your own.
So to round out this, I guess, well, one, it is a spiritual battle. We are in, definitely, as men in Christ, we believe that, we know that to be true, that this is a spiritual battle. But I guess from I think you use the word pragmatic, people who aren't Christians, right? It's like, just ask yourself, like, the worldview, what allows you to have the freedoms you have to choose a lifestyle, the partners, the adjectives, the pronouns, all the different things that you choose. What affords you to be able to do that? America. Yeah. And so
I'm just always question, like, why did you leave and come here if things were so wonderful where you were at, that you would want to bring those same ideals with you?
Well, it depends on how you got here, right? Because we got people coming through the border. We got people coming from other nations that...
But I think just regardless, like, those people that are out there, like, they're here, they got here, they left where they were at. And now they're trying to make this their home base and get everybody to adopt their ideology. I think that's...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that not everyone came here on equal grounds of, like, trying to better themselves. Some people have come here on assignment, right? Some people... That Death to America chant isn't a new one. This is from the Middle East. That's been happening for decades.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
So, for those of us who are Americans, though, tried and true, born and bred here, and adopted, I think it is to as it relates to our nation, there is a degree at which some differences need to be put aside, and some questions need to be asked, like, are you for this country? Then, regardless of if we have different positions and perspectives on things, how can we as neighbors effectively be a part of sustaining this republic together, you know?
Yeah.
Because there are plenty of people that want to see it torn down, and they're in Dearborn, Michigan. So we're going to have to go to Dearborn. All right.
I would love to see the streets of Dearborn just full of Americans. Like all of a sudden, like let's set a date and everybody just shows up and said we love our country.
Well, I think we've been like
flush it out.
tricked into like if you support America, then you must be MAGA,
Right.
or if you love your country, then like you
You're
must
far right
you must
extremist.
be an extremist, and that's the issue. Is no, I'm none of those things, but I am a capitalist. I am an American. I am a patriot. I am grateful for every opportunity that I have
Facts.
that have been given to us here, to my family. And I have done the research. I know what it's like in these other countries enough to know that I don't need to go there to figure it out. And why are we not doing that? Most Americans are illiterate on the topics of geopolitics, economics, war, and how all of this, melting pot of the United States came to be. And so they're just jaded. They have no perspective. So people hear that and they go, yeah, these are people that aren't from the Middle East. They're like, yeah, that's systemic racism, down with America. Like, what are you talking about, man? You're crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, so let's close her down with a notion on the beauty of capitalism.
Yeah, exactly.
That exists in this nation for those of us willing to take the risk of entrepreneurship.
This is what Brett needed yesterday.
Yeah. So
I can barely see it.
Didn't know
Blind in one eye
Brett came into our interview seeing double because his corneas were scorched from yesterday's eclipse.
Tried to look up at the eclipse for a quarter of a second.
But check this out by way of actionnews5.com. American Paper Optics sets new sales record for Eclipse glasses in Bartlett. So with the Great American Eclipse that happened on Monday, April 8th, American Optics, a Bartlett-based company, achieved a new sales record for Eclipse glasses. The Bartlett business has become the most trusted name in Eclipse glasses this year. Catch this, having already sold over 70 million glasses in preparation for yesterday's Eclipse.
Wow.
And Brett did not get a pair. They anticipated to exceed their target of 75 million sales by yesterday morning. Before the 2017 solar eclipse, the company sold 45 million pairs of glasses through its Shopify website. Wow. With this just look at those numbers.
Like, crazy. They look like 3D glasses, right?
Yeah, they do.
But they cost probably 8 cents to make and are sold for $1.
I mean, I would imagine they're probably the same company that makes 3D glasses, like IMAX glasses and whatnot. But
why wouldn't you buy the paper ones or the, is this
those are clearly paper. Those are paper. Yeah, those are paper. They're
oh yeah, they are.
They're like a thick cardboard, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can look up. Yeah, those are paper.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
they're literally
$149.
American Paper Optics.
Yeah, they're selling them in bundles, right? They would sell them in bundles for $120 for a pack of 10 or something like whatever it is.
There you go. Yeah.
When's the last time we had an eclipse like this? Was it 20 years?
I think 2017.
Yeah.
Was that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because they made 45 million. They sold 45 million pairs of glasses.
It's quite a business model.
That's just being opportunistic and
100%.
seeing the opportunity that cropped up.
Yeah.
They were already in their lane of making paper glasses, probably doing 3D glasses. And then they hear about solar eclipse and they're like, we could probably make some glasses, right? We just got to change the lens.
Yeah.
Pretty smart.
Yeah, and shout out to them. I mean, that's just cool. I mean, we love stories like that because there's opportunities everywhere.
Yes.
There really are. If you take the time and have the guts.
I'm putting my business hat on right now and I'm thinking, is there any liability? You know what I mean? Like they obviously have to test this thing out and make sure.
There is a certification body for the filament that
it'd have to be
smart.
Yeah. Like
there is a certification. It looks like ISO certification. I don't know what the ISO stands for. The International Sun Observatory. I don't know, but
that was good. Is that off the cuff? That was good.
International Solar Eclipse Optics.
So, but you had to get it certified. So there is some there, but that's still not super expensive. So shout out to American Paper Optics. One, for having American in your name. Two, for being creative entrepreneurs who are getting after it. And so that being said, Brett, you've been a guest on the pod today. We really appreciate your time, your input. Where can people get in touch with you or your businesses and all that you're about?
LinkedIn, you can find kind of a list of my businesses.
Spell your last name for them.
It's RAM, B as in boy, ERG. First name Brett, BRETT. And, as far as the AI space goes, ramberglabs.com is my website for that. And there's a contact form on there, if you want to chat AI. And then, LinkedIn for anything else business.
Okay. Well, Brett, man, we just appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Thanks for
y'all having me.
jumping into the middle of pain points where the world meets business.
Facts.
And if you guys got value out of the show, we'd love a review, share it with a friend, give us a sub on YouTube, and we'll bring the heat again next week.
Until next time, take care.
Thanks, y'all.